Well, hello once again. Glad to be back with you. Story today involves a gentleman that lived in the community of Middle Branch. Middle Branch had grown quite a lot over the years. This man had seen it all grow. He'd been there since he was a teenager, and he was getting on in years. Very fortunate man. He had done well for himself. He had come from another country, but he had done well for himself. Bill Shortridge was his name. He was a member of one of the local churches and was a deacon in the church and had served very faithfully. He was a very good man. Everybody loved Mr. Bill. A lot of the people around Middle Branch called him Uncle Bill out of respect. Well, he was getting on in years and was in bad health. They had a fairly young preacher there at the church, and it was time for him to go to the convention in Dallas, Texas. And his wife told him before he left, she said, "I'm really concerned about Uncle Bill. I'm afraid that he's not going to last much longer." And the preacher said, "Well, I know that, but I talked to him the other night after church, and he told me, you go on, preacher. Don't let my health worry you in the least. I'm all right. And I hope to see you again." Well, he had really supported this preacher. Preachers got off to a rough start at that church, but Bill Shortridge had hung in there. He liked the man. He felt like he was the right man for that church, and he hung in there. And in spite of a lot of opposition, the man stayed. He had become a very good preacher, and the people really loved him now. His wife tells him the morning that he's leaving, she said, "If you have some spare time, you really need to get you a new black suit, because you always like to wear a black suit for a funeral, and get you a new one because yours is getting a little shabby looking." Well, I'll do that. So he goes on to flies out of Nashville into Dallas and goes on to the convention. He's having a good time at the convention, and he calls his wife about every day, and he tells her, "Well, we had quite a bit of spare time this afternoon, and I went down here to a shop and I bought you a black suit. It fits well. I think you'll like it." Good. So the next day, they have to put Mr. Bill in the hospital. He's very, very sick. That evening, one of his daughter-in-laws calls to the preacher's wife and says, "The doctors are saying that he won't make it through the night. Very sick." And she said, "I thought you might want to let the preacher know." She said, "He'll come home." No, don't bother him to come home because the convention's not over." She said, "No, he will insist on it, but I'll call him." So sure enough, he flew in home. It was late when he got home. He had flown to Nashville and driven up to Middle Branch. And he came in, and he was planning on showing his new suit to his wife, so he had it on a separate hanger and all, but she had already gone to bed, so he just hangs it on the closet door there. Gets in bed. As things goes, he hadn't fully gone to sleep when the phone rung. It was one of Uncle Bill Shortridge's sons, and he said, "They say Dad has got just down to hours now, preacher." And he said, "Well, I'll be on down there just in a few minutes." Well, he jumps up and he slips on some pants and a shirt, and he thinks it's a little cool. Well, he just grabs the coat off of that new suit, puts it on. It doesn't exactly match his pants, but it don't look bad. And he heads on to the hospital. Well, they've got all kind of tubes and lines and everything you can think of on Mr. Bill. And he's fading fast, you can tell. He can't speak anymore because they've got tubes down his throat and all. But he's writing notes and passing them to him. And the preacher comes in and he walks up to the bedside. He said, "Uncle Bill," And preacher crying. This is really sad. This is the best friend he has ever had. And he tells him, he said, "Oh, Bill, I don't know what I can say to you, really, that I haven't already said, but you're the best friend I've ever had. You stood by me when nobody else did. You took care of me. When people kind of withheld their money, you put in more money to be sure there'd be enough in the treasury to pay me. There's no way I can ever express my thanks for all you've done." And Mr. Shortridge is doing his hand like this, and he finally gets a hold of his pad, and he starts writing. Just as he is tearing the note off, he passes on. The nurses all run in there, and the doctor, and they put everybody out of the room, and they try to revive him, but he's gone. Well, the preacher has took the note out of his hand, and he stuck it in his coat pocket. In the excitement of Uncle Bill dying, the note's kind of forgotten. Well, he goes on back home. He wakes his wife up, tells her, "Uncle Bill's gone. He didn't make it." She said, "Well, I was afraid of that, but I'm glad you got here and got to see him, though, and he got to see you." He said, "Yes, I'm very thankful for that." Okay, 2 days later, they're having Uncle Bill's funeral. Church is full, yard's full. People just come from everywhere. Everybody knew Bill Shortridge. Everybody loved the man. Preacher is up in the pulpit. Family sitting here on the first 5 or 6 pews because they had 11 sons, and they're all married, several grandchildren. And preacher's talking, and he says, "I really should be sitting out there with you because he was like a daddy to me. He took care of me when seemingly nobody else cared, and there's not enough I can say about him." And all at once that note came to his mind. And it dawned on him, I've got on the same coat that I had on that night at the hospital. And he said, as Brother Bill was passing over, he wrote a note. I've not read it, but I have it in my coat pocket. And he looks to the widow and the sons sitting there and said, "Will it be all right if I read this here at the funeral?" "Sure." So he pulls the note out and he unfolds it and he reads, "Step back, preacher, you're standing on the airline.